Here we have an example for direct variation or inverse variation. For resident at your local college, the cost of tuition, and let's once again notice cost of tuition, so C. We call this color C, right? Cost of tuition varies directly as the number of credit hours taken for academic year 2020 to 2021. The cost of 14 billion contact hours was $1,375.50. What did 16 billion contact hours cost? Be aware. Do notice some of my values may have changed from what you may have noticed or may notice, okay? Especially if you have a printout. Okay, so once again, we have for a resident at your local college, so whatever college or school you go to. You might want to update some of the numbers as well to represent your college, okay? The cost, so C of a tuition varies, so cost, directly as the number, so directly, keep in mind that keyword directly, okay? It's important, as the number of credit hours taken, so hours, let's use H for hours, okay? So another highlight, so keep in mind, when you're reading word problems, I highly recommend you read them once, then come back to them, read them again, just like what we're doing, and highlight or subline or do something so that you can circle or show that that's basically what you think is critical. So proceeding on then, we definitely can think of maybe the years will be critical then, since it would basically change maybe by next year, could be a different amount, right? So prices of tuition changes, unfortunately. So, and in this case we're looking at 14 billion contact hours, so there's 14 hours, and it's at a price of $1,375.50. That's what you're getting charged. Keep in mind, this may not include fees and anything else, right? So not room and board, just purely the cost for the credits. That's the main thing about this one, okay? So do realize that. 16 billion contact hours is the question. How much are you going to pay for 16 credit hours? So once again, if you have financial aid, this might be critical to realize that definitely financial aid is paying a handsome amount to try to keep you in school so that you can learn, and you're going to benefit from it in the end, right, as well. So you're going to get a very job more than likely once you graduate. So, but let's go back to direct variation. We have direct variation versus inverse variation. What are we using in this case? Keyword there for you. Is it direct or inverse variation? Okay. Remember, direct variation, y equals k times x, means it's a multiplication, while inverse variation implies a division. Agreed? K divided by x. So for this one, it states that we're using direct variation, so it varies directly. So there is the one that we're using, direct variation. Okay, so therefore our case states that we're going to use the cost of tuition, so I recommend we use C for cost. Makes it easier to visualize. That's the representative of y in this case. And of course, we have credit hours taken, so how many classes are you taking or how many credits you're taking would be hours, to avoid confusion between the C of the cost and the C of the credits, right? So let's just say C is the cost and H is the hours you're taking, okay? So C and H. So C equals K times H. So there's your Y and X representative, in this case, the C and the H. And let me just restate, that way makes it easier to see it. H is the credit hours and C is the cost, okay? So the total cost of the amount of credits you're taking. So for 14 hours, it tells us that the charge is $1,375.50. Agreed? So this is just one particular case scenario. The other case scenario is, what if you're taking 16 credit hours? How much are you being charged, ideally? Agreed? So there it is. Our one case scenario, as the coordinate, it's the 14 billing hours, and the price, the cost, $1,375.50. Agreed? Now it's the X and Y representative, or the C and H, for this particular case of our equation. So let's realize that equals K. The K is going to be there. We're going to try to solve for K, but we're replacing the C value with the cost that they're providing us as a reference, $1,375.50, and the H value, which is 14 credit hours in this case. There it is. We substituted, and that's a matter of solving for K. So let's solve for K. In other words, divide by 14, right, on both sides. Getting rid of the 14, cancels out on the right side. That leaves us with 1375.50 divided by 14. Well, at this point it becomes probably a calculator work, right? So maybe plug it into your calculator, see if it gives you what value we have. If not, you can always do by hand. It's a division, right? Long division. So 1375.50 divided by 14, hit enter, and it should give you the amount. There it is, $98.25. So that means that the cost of tuition, in this case per credit hours, is $98.25. So this gives us our final equation. C equals 98.25 is the K value. And ideally, we hope it doesn't change within this year, right? So it's going to be constant at least for this year. So our equation C equals 98.25 times H would be our final equation. There we go. So we got our final equation. Now let's say next term, you're trying to find out how much am I going to pay for my college, but I'm going to take more classes. I'm going to take one extra class, which means 16 credits instead of 14 credits. That's this next case scenario. So for 16 billion contact hours, how much is it going to cost me? So C equals 98.25 times 16, because it's the number of hours we're going to take. And that gives us, well, $1,572. Once again, this is purely for your credit hours. It does not include the fees, right? And especially not the board. In other words, the living expenses. So there is the answer for this particular portion of the question. So we found the equation, and we also found a specific case when we take 16 credit hours. In this case, we went through and used direct abbreviation as our example. Agreed? So for 16 credit hours, the cost will be $1,572. Remember, if you have financial aid, keep the financial aid. It's helping you out a lot, right?